Remember, each day this week we're going to be learning a new procedure that starts off our class. Yesterday we learned about zones of regulation, and you should have reported your zone of regulation. You may have also noticed that the next button under coursework is vocabulary, but when you click vocabulary, it wasn't active yet. Today, the vocabulary button is on and working, and that'll be the next thing you click every day after you report your zone of regulation. We work with the vocabulary notebook, and you're going to make an entry each day about a different science term. Why do we work with vocabulary? The answer is simple. You only think in the words you know, which means that what you can think about, how deep your thoughts can be, and the ideas that you can come up with depend on how many words you know. So a bigger vocabulary means a better, easier to use brain. Also, we do vocabulary, especially in science class, because science has a lot of strange words, either words that you haven't seen before or words that mean something a little bit different in science than they would in the rest of your life. Whether we are in person or remote, vocabulary is always going to be in Canvas. Every day, you're going to report your zone of regulation and you're going to do your vocabulary in Canvas. So after doing your zone of regulation, remember this is second, you'll click on the coursework button and then click the vocabulary button every day. Once you click the vocabulary button, there's some resources there, but you're going to pick the vocabulary notebook assignment, and it is just called vocabulary notebook. When you click that, you're going to see two things. But let's talk about why we're doing this notebook. You're going to do the daily vocabulary notebook. Also under that vocabulary tab, you'll see that there's going to be a weekly vocabulary assessment on Fridays that covers that week's words, but may also cover words from the past to make sure that we're staying fresh. I'm going to ask you on Friday to rate your knowledge of each word for that week. And then about every 2 weeks, we're going to play a game using those vocabulary words. When you click your vocabulary notebook assignment, you're going to see two things. The first one is going to be a Google slide presentation that has the terms. You'll click through the Google slide presentation to the last slide, and that will be your word for the day. If you've missed any words, you are expected to make them up in order, so always make sure that you have every word in your notebook that's in these slides. I'll be adding one word a day. Underneath is your actual vocabulary notebook, and we'll look at the parts of that again. But it has 180 vocabulary templates. We probably will not use all of those during the school year. If you want to open your vocabulary notebook in full screen, you're going to click Virtual Vocabulary Template, and this will open up your vocabulary notebook. It's the same one that's here in a full screen window. On the slides, you'll see something like this. It'll be pretty simple. Sometimes there may be a video, sometimes there may be a picture, but this is what you'll always have. You'll see the word, so I'm using game as an example. You'll see a description of what that word means, and then maybe a few sentences using the word, or some descriptions of concepts that are related to that word. A sport is a game that requires physical skill, so it just draws a connection for us. You're going to do one box for one word. So if our word was game, you're going to type the word game in this box. And then your next step is associated terms. And you're going to come up with 1, 2, 3 terms that have to do with the word game, or for your word for that day. So for game, I might pick checkers, go fish, winning, but I'm going to have some associated terms. Those can be synonyms, those can be antonyms or opposites, or those can just be words that come to mind when you hear the word game. I'm then going to list 2 examples of that word. Okay? So these may be things that could have gone in associated terms, but I might write go fish or checkers here. If you come up with an associated term that could be an example, put it in the examples box instead, or ignore it, and think of a different associated terms. So earlier I thought of checkers, but really that's an example of a game, so I would list it here. And think of something like score or points to be the associated term. After I've gone in order through my associated terms and examples, I'm ready to write a description in this last box. And this box will get bigger as you type if you need it to. A description of what that word means. You are not writing something that sounds like the definition from a dictionary. You are writing something that's, if you were telling a fifth grader what this word meant, what would you say to them? Don't copy the descriptions from my slide. I will be plagiarizing checking these, so don't get a description from Google either. I will find out. Your first word of the day is up already, and it's argument. So you can go ahead and report your zone of regulation for the day, then move on to vocabulary and report your vocabulary. There won't be an additional coursework today, but do make sure that you have finished the My Science Personality assignment from previous days.